Joining me for tonight's Big Picture Progressive Roundtable are Ben Cohen, editor of the Daily Banter, Ari Ravenhoft, host of The Agenda on SiriusXM Progress, and Lee Camp, host of Redacted Tonight on RT America, which airs immediately after this show. And also joining us for the first segment is Bob Ney, former congressman for Ohio's 18th District, and author of the book Sideswipe, Lessons Learned Courtesy of the Hitmen of Capitol Hill. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Let's get started. So, Congressman Ney, if I can start with you, Bob. You worked, Congressman? Can you hear me? I think the congressman can't hear us. Oh, well. All right.
Short interview.
Yeah, short interview. So, Bob, when you can hear me, you can't hear me. So when you can hear me, let me know. You can. We'll work on it. So anyway, here's what Nancy Pelosi, just for all of you, and then we can talk about this. Here's what Nancy Pelosi had to say about Boehner's resignation.
The Speaker announcing his resignation. That resignation of the Speaker is a stark indication of the disarray of the House Republicans, a demonstration of their obsession with shutting down government at the expense of women's health, and a sign of the failure of the House Republicans to be willing to engage in dialogue for the good of the American people.
So that was Nancy Pelosi's take. Meanwhile, Marco Rubio told the Value Voters Summit, they should rename that, like Bigot Voters or something. Anyhow, that Boehner was resigning. The crowd broke out in cheers. Take a look.
We'll see how things progress.
Go ahead, Bob.
Just a few minutes ago, Speaker Boehner announced that he will be resigning.
Can anyone here explain to me the right wing's hatred of John Boehner?
Personally, I find it's astonishing that you've got a staunch Republican, somebody who's basically, he's an ultra-conservative by any normal definition of the word, and yet he's seen as a kind of flip-flopping liberal by these extremists within the Republican Party. It's complete chaos, really. Now I think it's opened Pandora's box, and all the crazies are going to come out and try and fight for the leadership. The hatred towards Boehner is I'm at a loss for words.
Yeah.
Well, I think I would analyze it as people hate weakness in general, especially base of the party. And John Boehner was a weak speaker. And he was a weak speaker, by the way, because he created a system that was weak. He actually he permanently weakened the role of speaker in actually two ways. One, by eliminating earmarks, that weakened the role of speaker because he no longer had financial control over the caucus. Like the speaker could no longer dole out goodies to districts, and he took that power away. Part two, Citizens United, which he supported, weakened the speaker. How did Citizens United weaken the speaker? Well, prior to Citizens United, you could depend and rely on your party committee, the NRCC, for money. Now
it's the Koch.
Now it's the Koch, or outside interest can just pump in $1 million, or one single millionaire with an interest can pump $1 million. The speakers no longer has financial control over campaigns, no longer has financial control over the livelihood of your district. So what control does the speaker really has? And now that role is achieving consensus among crazies, which is where John Boehner falls apart.
Right. And Congressman Ney is now with us. Bob, you here? Great to have you with us. Great. Thanks for joining us. So what's your take on John Boehner's departure?
Well, I mean, if you look back, and when I wrote Sideswipe, Tom, as you know, in 2013, after 30 years of knowing John Boehner, I wrote about him, and I wrote specifically, beyond all the, the things he did, the trading of my job for money, etc., but I wrote about his style, because he was a person that didn't like conflict. He liked the good side of Congress. He liked the golfing. He liked things to go easy. So he didn't have a leadership style at all. But he was a guy, unlike anyone I had really ever seen in my lifetime, that when you approached him, and I'll give you a specific example, Louise Slaughter and I had a bill, a very popular bill. You can't use genetic testing against a person, their gene pool, in order to rate them for insurance. I couldn't even get a hearing. So I went to John Boehner and I said, John, what's up? And he's an Ohioan, I've known him forever. I'd like to get a hearing. And he said, our contributors don't want one. Our contributors don't like this. Now, at least people can fake an answer on most things that, well, this isn't good policy or whatever. But he wasn't the type of guy that had a big picture either. So he couldn't present a vision to the conference. Now, some people only care about money, and I what the previous gentleman said, I think, has a lot of truth to it. But he couldn't present a vision, so he was a weak leader. He also tried to satisfy so many times the what I call the rump caucus, the 45-some people that want to shut the government down or Obamacare, whatever it was. And what he tried to do, Tom, is to satisfy them. And you can't satisfy them by saying, yes, we're gonna undo Obamacare or we're going to shut the government down. You can't just throw things like that out. They're not regular people and expect that they're going to say, oh, okay, well, we gave a good fight. They wanted blood, and now they've tasted blood, and they've went after him. So, I think combined with the money, what they said, a lot of money went out of his hands, although he was a money guy in a fierce way. And if you really look at the fact of the $2.5 million he illegally took from Chevron, and a lot of people don't even know that he illegally took from Chevron, where he exceeded the $150,000 through Penn National in the gambling interest, exceeded it. A lot. That's just two examples. He got away with a lot of things. I think that the people that wanted him, the Tea Party people, some of them wanted him so bad, Tom, that they were going to go after him in many ways, including ethically. They took his money, but they wanted to get him out of there. So I think a whole series of things, and a very weak person, and a guy that never did like public policy anyway.
So you think his crimes, that he might have been essentially blackmailed with the fact that he had committed crimes that you document in your book Sideswiped, by the way?
Sure. I mean, he did what Blagojevich did. And now he got away with a lot of this. And I don't speak because, I just absolutely can't stand John Boehner, but people needed to know he was part of that system. He was part of the Bush White House, the Abramoff connections. He was part of it. But what I'm saying in this case, they have been after him. He didn't just all of a sudden see the pontiff and have this major reflection and say a prayer and say, okay, I'm going to quit today. I know for a fact from 3 impeccable documented Republican sources within that Capitol, some very close to Boehner, I know for a fact this has been in negotiation, that he would leave, the Pope would come, and then he would leave. And not only leave, he's getting out. I mean, he's not even spending a couple of months there. And I think that they were after him so much, and they were going to begin the process of starting a lot of problems for him, including ethics problems.
I have a question for the Congressman. Who do you think is going to replace Boehner? Who would be your pick?
This is fascinating because, look, the Tea Party absolutely does not want Kevin McCarthy. Now, in maybe standards of people who are progressives looking at it, Kevin McCarthy is a right-wing guy, but not within the Tea Party. Think about that. Kevin McCarthy is a liberal within the Tea Party movement. So they don't want him. So maybe Jeb Hensarling or Jim Jordan or somebody like that will maybe challenge him. But I wouldn't bet anything that they would win, because here's the problem. 40-some votes, which is enough to take a speaker out, but it's not enough to elect one. So they don't have the votes to elect. Now, the other problem they have is this. As far as shutting the government down, forget it. As far as Planned Parenthood, forget it, because the one gift John Boehner is going to give them that they're not going to want, it's like getting that lump of coal for Christmas, is the fact that on his way out, he's going to throw this open for Democratic votes and Republican votes to continue running this government, a separate vote for Planned Parenthood, which isn't going to matter. It's not going to go anywhere, especially in the Senate. So that's what he's going to do. So now, he's leaving on those terms. But there's going to be so much chaos anyway, they aren't even be able to focus on that. So Kevin McCarthy is probably going to get picked, but he is not the choice. So the conservatives are immediately going to browbeat him. And he's either going to do what they say, or guess what? There can be a resolution against him at the desk. Now, I think this plays, if they make chaos, I think this plays completely into the hands of the Democratic side that says, look, we better have a balance in this government. And that's why you're seeing people like, Trump and Rubio was applauding and Ted Cruz is all delighted because, they're going to go after, quote, the evils of Washington. Well, the evils of what they're talking about is another Republican.
Yeah, amazing. Congressman Bob Ney. Bob, it's always a great pleasure having you on the program, and it's great to see you. Thank you for joining us tonight. And we'll be back with the Progressive Roundtable right after the break.